The alarm sounded at exactly 0600 hours on Tuesday morning. Admiral Ji-hoon was already awake, standing in his quarters aboard the UNS Horizon when the call came through. He had expected this day for months now. The feeling in his gut told him something big was coming. "Admiral, you need to see this." The voice on the comm system belonged to Lieutenant Yuna. Her tone was calm, but Ji-hoon could hear the tension underneath. He had trained her well. She never panicked. Even when things looked bad, Ji-hoon walked quickly through the corridors of the flagship. Crew members saluted as he passed. He nodded but did not slow down. The bridge doors opened with a soft hiss. The moment he stepped inside, he felt the weight of every pair of eyes turning toward him. The main screen showed nothing yet, just empty space and distant stars. But Yuna stood at her station with her hand hovering over the controls. "It came in on all frequencies, sir. Every single one. They made sure we couldn't miss it." "Show me," Ji-hoon said. Yuna pressed the button. The screen flickered and then filled with an image that made the entire bridge go silent. 7 aliens stood in a semicircle, each one different from the others. The one in the center was tall, easily 3 meters high, with a body that looked like it was made of dark metal and chitin. Its head had multiple eyes that gleamed with an unsettling intelligence. This was a Vrelian, one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. The creature began to speak. The words came out in a series of clicks and buzzes, but the translation software built into Earth's systems converted it into clear English almost instantly. "Humans of Earth. We are the Galactic Council. We represent 7 species and control 400 inhabited systems across this galaxy. We have watched you for 3 of your years. We have studied your civilization. We have analyzed your technology, your culture, and your behavior." The Vrelian's mandibles clicked together in what might have been the alien equivalent of a frown. "What we have found concerns us greatly. You are a violent species. You fight among yourselves constantly. You destroy your own environment. You create weapons of terrible power and use them without hesitation. In all our observations, we have concluded that humanity represents a threat to galactic peace and stability." Ji-hoon stood perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, the bridge crew barely breathed. They all knew what was coming next. Therefore, the Galactic Council has voted unanimously. Earth must surrender its sovereignty immediately. You will dismantle all military vessels and weapons. You will accept governance by council representatives. You will submit to our laws and our authority. This is not a request. This is a command. The Vrelian leaned forward slightly. You have 30 of your planetary rotations to comply. 30 days. If you refuse, we will use force to achieve compliance. We have brought 12 war fleets to your system. Each fleet is capable of destroying all life on your planet within hours. We do not wish to do this, but we will if necessary. Choose wisely. Humans. Submit or face extinction. The transmission ended. The screen went dark. For several long seconds, nobody on the bridge said anything. The silence felt heavy, like a physical weight pressing down on them all. Then Lieutenant Yuna spoke quietly. "Sir, sensors confirm 12 large formations in the outer system. They weren't there yesterday. They must have jumped in during the night shift. The formations match Council military doctrine exactly. 7 species, 12 fleets, approximately 800 capital ships total." Another officer, a young man named Taejin, added his report. "Communications are going crazy, Admiral. Every government on Earth is demanding information. The media has already picked up the transmission. It went out on civilian frequencies too. Everyone knows. Everyone knows. Mon. Everyone." Ji-hoon finally moved. He walked slowly to his command chair and sat down. His face showed no emotion. No fear. No anger. Nothing. He simply looked at the dark screen where the aliens had been moments before. "Analysis?" he asked calmly. Yuna pulled up data on her console. The fleets are positioned in a standard blockade formation. Very predictable. By the book. Council tactics. They're confident. Sir, they don't see us as a real threat. This is intimidation, not preparation for actual combat. Jihoon nodded slowly. They gave us 30 days. Yes, sir. That was their first mistake. Yuna glanced at him sharply. She knew that tone. It was the same tone he used when he was about to do something the enemy would never expect. Jihoon stood up again and walked to the main viewing port. He looked out at the stars, at the vast darkness of space that humans had only recently begun to explore. Earth was down there somewhere, a blue and white marble that held 8 billion people who had no idea their lives had just changed forever. Lieutenant Yuna, send a coded message to Earth Command. Maximum encryption. Tell them, it's time. Time for what, sir? Jihoon's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Tell them to activate protocol endurance. Yuna's eyes widened just slightly. But she nodded and began typing immediately. Protocol? Endurance. Every senior officer in Earth's military knew what that meant. It was the contingency plan they had been building for decades. The plan that assumed one day, humanity would face an enemy too powerful to defeat through conventional means. The plan that required absolute secrecy and perfect timing. Around the bridge, other officers were beginning to understand. Taejin looked confused for a moment. Then his expression changed to something like awe. Sir, are we really going to? Yes, Jihoon cut him off. We are. The council thinks they know everything about us. They watched us for 3 years and think they have us figured out. They see our wars and our conflicts and assume we're primitive, weak, divided. He turned away from the viewport and looked at his crew. Every single person on that bridge was hand-picked. Every single one of them knew what was at stake. They don't understand humans at all, Jihoon continued. They don't know that we're at our most dangerous when someone backs us into a corner. They don't know that we've been planning for this exact scenario since the day we discovered we weren't alone in the universe. And most importantly, they don't know what we've been building in the dark. Yuna finished sending the encrypted message. Message sent, sir. Earth Command confirms receipt. They're asking if you're certain. Tell them I'm certain. Tell them we have 30 days. But we'll only need 7. 7 days, sir? That cold smile returned to Jihoon's face. 7 days to get every piece into position. Then, we'll show the Galactic Council what happens when you underestimate humanity. They came here expecting us to beg, to panic, to break apart under pressure. He looked back at the screen where the aliens had delivered their ultimatum. Instead, we're going to teach them the most important lesson in human history. The same lesson every empire that ever tried to conquer Earth learned eventually. What lesson is that, sir? Asked Taejin. Jihoon's cold smile widened just a fraction. That humans don't surrender. Ever. We adapt. We survive. And when you push us hard enough, we push back harder than you can possibly imagine. He sat back down in his command chair. Now, let's get to work. We have a war to win, and the enemy doesn't even know. It's already started. 3 days after the Council's ultimatum, Earth looked like it was falling apart. At least, that's what the alien surveillance drones saw when they scanned the planet from orbit. Protests filled the streets of major cities. Thousands of people gathered with signs demanding their governments negotiate with the Council. Other groups called for resistance. Fights broke out. News broadcasts showed politicians arguing viciously with each other. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others called for defiance, no matter the cost. The planet seemed divided, chaotic, exactly what the Council expected from a primitive species facing overwhelming force. High above Earth, the Council's monitoring station recorded everything. The aliens watched with satisfaction. Humans were predictable, after all. Give them an impossible choice and they would tear themselves apart trying to decide what to do. But the aliens weren't seeing the whole picture. They couldn't see what was happening in the shadows. Captain Minho sat in the command chair of the Phantom's Edge, a ship that officially didn't exist. The vessel was small compared to a battleship, only 300 meters long. But every centimeter of it was packed with technology the Council had no idea humans possessed. The bridge was dark except for the soft glow of screens and displays. Minho liked it that way. Darkness meant they were running in full stealth mode. Darkness meant they were invisible. "Status?" he asked quietly. Engineer Hana looked up from her station. Her fingers danced across multiple holographic displays at once. "Dark matter wake is completely clean, Captain. 0 emissions. We're putting out less energy signature than a small asteroid. If the Council is looking at us right now, all they see is empty space." "Good. Keep it that way." Minho turned to his tactical officer. "Taejin, what's our position relative to the target?" Taejin pulled up a 3-dimensional map of the solar system. A massive structure floated near Jupiter's orbit, bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. The Council's main battle station, the heart of their fleet operations in Earth's system. 2,000 kilometers, sir. We're well inside their defensive perimeter. They have no idea we're here." Minho allowed himself a small smile. Like Admiral Ji-hoon's smile, cold and calculating. "How many of our ships are in position now?" 47 out of 50, sir. "The last 3 are making their final approaches. They'll be ready within 6 hours. Ender, Axis, 50 ships. 50 vessels that the Council didn't know existed because humanity had learned a crucial lesson decades ago. If you wanted to hide something important, you didn't try to make it invisible. You made sure your enemy thought they had already seen everything you had. Earth's official fleet consisted of 30 destroyers, 5 cruisers, and 1 flagship. The Council had counted every single one of them. They had scanned them with every sensor they possessed. They knew exactly how powerful those ships were. And the answer was, not very. Human vessels used fusion drives and primitive particle weapons. Nothing that could threaten Council technology. Except that was all theater. A carefully constructed lie that humanity had been building for 30 years. The real fleet, the secret fleet, was something else entirely. 50 stealth ships, built in hidden shipyards, scattered through the asteroid belt. Vessels that used technology humanity had reverse-engineered from every piece of alien wreckage they had ever found, combined with innovations the Council had never imagined. Because they had been dominant for so long, they stopped innovating. "Hana, how are the weapon systems?" Minho asked. "All green, Captain. Quantum disruptor cannons are charged and ready. EMP torpedoes are loaded. Cyber warfare packages are standing by. We can disable that battle station in under 2 minutes once we get the order. Not destroy. Disable." "Yes, sir." "Disable only. We're not here to kill them. We're here to show them they can't kill us." That was the key to the whole plan. Admiral Ji-hoon had been very clear about that. This wasn't about genocide or revenge. It was about sending a message so powerful that the Council would never threaten Earth again. You don't do that by becoming the monsters. You do that by showing you're better than the monsters. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Yuna's face appeared on a small screen. She was broadcasting from the flagship, using quantum entanglement communication that was impossible to intercept. "Captain Minho, this is the horizon. Status report? All systems nominal, Lieutenant. We're ready whenever you give the word. Acknowledged. Hold position and maintain stealth protocols. The Council is getting nervous. Their intelligence reports show Earth is fragmenting. They think we're going to surrender any day now." Minho grinned. "Perfect. Let them think that right up until the moment we prove them wrong." Yuna's expression remained professional, but there was a hint of satisfaction in her eyes. "Admiral Ji-hoon wants you to know that Phase 2 begins in 72 hours. Make sure every ship in your task force is ready. We'll be ready." Phantom's Edge out. The communication ended. Minho stood up, and walked to the main viewport. From this distance, he could see the Council's battle station clearly. It was enormous, probably 5 kilometers across, shaped like a disc with multiple weapon platforms extending from its surface like the spines of some giant creature. Fighters and patrol ships moved around it in predictable patterns. "They're so confident," Tejan observed from his station. "Look at them. Standard patrol routes. No variation. They're not even trying to hide their movements. Why would they?" Minho replied. "They've been the dominant power in this galaxy for 10,000 years. They've crushed hundreds of species. Every single one of those species fought back the same way. Conventional tactics. Predictable strategies. The Council has seen it all before." He turned back to face his crew. "But they've never fought humanity. They don't understand what makes us different. They studied us for 3 years and think they know everything. They watched our wars and saw violence and chaos. What they didn't see was what those wars taught us." Hana looked up from her console. "What did they teach us, Captain?" "Adaptation, innovation, the ability to learn from defeat and come back stronger. Earth's history is full of empires that looked unbeatable. The Mongols, the Romans, the British Empire. All of them seemed invincible at their peak, and all of them eventually fell because they couldn't adapt fast enough when things changed." Minho gestured at the battle station on the screen. "The Council is just another empire that stayed on top for too long. They got comfortable, predictable. They follow the same tactics they've used for thousands of years because those tactics always worked before. But we're not like the species they fought before. We're human, and humans are very, very good at finding weaknesses." For the next 3 days, the Phantom's Edge and 49 other stealth ships held their positions throughout the solar system. They watched. They recorded. They analyzed every single thing the Council's forces did. They mapped out shield frequencies by watching how the Council ships' defensive fields interacted with cosmic radiation. They cracked communication codes by intercepting and analyzing millions of transmissions. They identified weak points in the battle station structure by studying how it redistributed power during different operational modes. And all the while, on Earth's surface, the protests continued. The arguments raged. The news broadcasts showed more chaos and confusion. Some human military units appeared to stand down. Defense satellites went offline. It looked like Earth was giving up. The Council watched it all and felt satisfied. This was going exactly as they had predicted. Humanity was breaking. Soon they would beg for terms. Soon they would surrender. They had no idea that every protest was carefully staged, every argument scripted, every defeat was actually a strategic repositioning. The satellites that went offline hadn't been destroyed. They had been transformed. Hidden weapon platforms now floated in orbit disguised as dead metal. Minho received his final orders on day 6. "All ships. This is Admiral Jihoon. Tomorrow we show the Council what humanity really is. Tomorrow we answer their ultimatum. Get some rest tonight. You've earned it. And remember, we're not doing this because we want war. We're doing this because we refuse to surrender. There's a difference." Jihoon out. Minho looked around his bridge at his crew. Hana, at engineering. Tejan, at tactical. A dozen other men and women who had trained for years for this moment. They were calm, ready. They knew what was at stake. "You heard the Admiral," Minho said quietly. "Tomorrow we make history. Tomorrow we teach the galaxy that Earth bows to no one. Get some sleep. We have a long day ahead of us." As the crew rotated out for rest periods, Minho stayed on the bridge. He looked at the Council's battle station one more time. It hung there in space, enormous and powerful, and completely unaware that 50 human ships surrounded it, like invisible predators circling their prey. The Council had given humanity 30 days to surrender. Tomorrow, on day 7, humanity would give them an answer they would never forget. Day 29 arrived with an eerie calm. On Earth, the protests had stopped. The news broadcasts went quiet. It seemed like humanity had finally made its decision. The Council's monitoring stations reported that Earth's governments were preparing an official response. The aliens waited, confident they knew what that response would be: surrender. Aboard the UNS Horizon, Admiral Ji-hoon stood in front of a camera. Behind him, the bridge crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. Lieutenant Yuna stood to his left, her hands folded calmly. To his right, 3 other senior officers stood at attention. They all wore their dress uniforms. They all had the same expression on their faces: calm, cold, determined. "Ready to broadcast on all frequencies, sir," reported the communications officer. Ji-hoon nodded once. "Begin transmission." Throughout the solar system, every council ship received the signal simultaneously. In the council chambers thousands of light-years away, the 7 species gathered to hear Earth's surrender. The Vrelian ambassador settled into his seat with satisfaction. This primitive species had finally learned its place. The screen lit up with Admiral Ji-hoon's face. The human looked directly into the camera, with eyes that seemed to see right through anyone watching. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady. "People of the Galactic Council, 29 days ago, you gave us an ultimatum. You demanded our surrender. You threatened us with extinction if we did not comply. You brought 12 war fleets to our system and told us we had no choice." Ji-hoon paused for just a moment. Then his lips curved into that cold smile. The same smile Captain Minho had seen. The same smile that sent a chill through everyone who saw it. "We have considered your demands very carefully. We have debated among our people. We have weighed every option. And we have come to a unanimous decision." Another pause. Every alien watching leaned forward slightly, waiting for the words of submission. "You have made a critical miscalculation." Before anyone could process what he meant, everything happened at once. 50 stealth ships revealed themselves. One moment, the Council's sensors showed empty space. The next moment, 50 human vessels appeared around the battle station, already inside the defensive perimeter, weapons charged and targeting systems locked on. At the same instant, hundreds of satellites that the Council thought were dead suddenly activated. They weren't civilian satellites. They were weapon platforms that had been hidden in plain sight for years, just waiting for this moment. On the Phantom's edge, Captain Minho gave the order his crew had been waiting for. "All weapons, fire." The quantum disruptor cannons hummed to life. Invisible beams of energy struck the Council's battle station with perfect precision. Not at the reactors. Not at the life support. At the weapons systems. The targeting arrays. The shield generators. Within seconds, the massive station's offensive capabilities dropped to 0. "Direct hits confirmed," Hana called out from engineering. "Their main weapons are offline. Shields are fluctuating. They can't shoot back." Similar reports came in from all 50 stealth ships. The Council's fleet was being systematically disabled. Not destroyed. Not obliterated. Disabled. Surgical strikes that left the ships helpless but intact. The crews were safe. The vessels could be repaired. But for now, they were completely powerless. Admiral Ji-hoon's voice continued, broadcasting across every frequency. "You gave us 30 days. You thought that was generous. But what you didn't know is that we've been preparing for this moment for 30 years. Ever since we first detected your presence in the galaxy, we knew this day might come. We knew that eventually, someone would try to force us to submit. So we prepared." On the Council's flagship, alarms blared. The Vrelian ambassador stumbled out of his seat, his multiple eyes wide with shock. "How? How is this possible? Their technology was primitive. We scanned their entire fleet." His tactical officer, a smaller insectoid creature, stared at his displays in disbelief. "Sir, these ships, they're using technology we've never seen before. Dark matter drives. Quantum weapons. Cyber warfare systems that are bypassing our security protocols like they don't even exist. They're inside our networks. They control our systems. We're completely blind. Ji-hoon's face filled every screen throughout the council fleet. His cold smile never wavered. You called us primitive. You studied us for 3 years and thought you understood humanity. But you only saw what we wanted you to see. While you watched our cities, we built shipyards in our asteroid belt. While you scanned our communications, we developed quantum networks you couldn't detect. While you analyzed our primitive weapons, we reverse-engineered every piece of alien technology we've ever found and made it better. Lieutenant Yuna stepped forward on the broadcast. Her voice was as calm as Ji-hoon's. But there was steel underneath. You made assumptions based on incomplete data. You saw our conflicts and thought we were divided. You saw our wars and thought we were chaotic. What you didn't understand is that those conflicts made us stronger. They taught us to innovate, to adapt, to find solutions to impossible problems. Throughout the solar system, Council ships were discovering the extent of their vulnerability. Human cyber warfare specialists had been inside their networks for weeks. Every communication code, every shield frequency, every tactical protocol. Humanity knew everything. Captain Minho watched his displays as the battle station's systems continued to fail. Hana. Status on their life support? Fully functional, Captain. We haven't touched it. All crew quarters are secure. Medical bays are online. Food and water supplies are intact. We disabled their ability to fight, not their ability to survive. Good. That's important. We need them to understand. This isn't about genocide. It's about respect. On Earth, people watched the broadcasts in stunned silence. For weeks, they had seen their leaders argue and their military appear to struggle. Now they understood. It had all been an act, a deception so complete that even most of Earth's population didn't know the truth. The chaos had been staged to make the Council comfortable, to make them think they had already won. Admiral Ji-hoon continued his broadcast. Right now, every ship in your fleet has been disabled. Your weapons are offline. Your shields are down. Your communications are compromised. We could destroy you completely if we wanted to, but we won't. Do you know why? He leaned closer to the camera, and his expression became even harder. Because we're not like you. You built your empire on fear and conquest. You subjugated hundreds of species because you were stronger than them. You ruled through force because you never learned any other way. Another voice joined the broadcast. It was Ambassador Somin, speaking from Earth's surface. She stood in the United Nations building, surrounded by leaders from every nation on the planet. Behind her unity, the Council saw something they didn't expect. Not submission, determination. Humanity learned something different, Somin said. We learned that true strength isn't about domination. It's about resilience. It's about the ability to protect what matters without becoming the monsters we fight against. You came here expecting us to break. Instead, we're showing you that we can't be broken. More displays appeared on the Council's screens. Human ships were approaching disabled Council vessels. But they weren't attacking. They were offering assistance. Medical teams. Repair supplies. Rescue operations for any crew members who had been injured in the initial strike. We're disabling your fleet, Ji-hoon explained. But we're not slaughtering your people. We're showing you that this doesn't have to end in death and destruction. It can end right now. You leave our system. You never threaten Earth again. You leave our system. You never threaten Earth again. And we all go back to our respective corners of the galaxy. The Vrelian ambassador stared at his screens in complete shock. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Species that were threatened by the Council either surrendered or died fighting. They didn't win. They certainly didn't win, while simultaneously offering mercy. What are you? the Vrelian whispered. As if hearing the question, Commander Heejin appeared on another channel. She commanded the UNS Defiance, one of the conventional warships the Council had dismissed as no threat. You asked what we are? We're human. We're a species that survived ice ages and plagues. We're a species that went from primitive tools to space travel in just a few thousand years. We're a species that looked at the stars and decided we belonged there, even though we had no idea what we'd find. She paused, then added, and we're a species that doesn't surrender. Not to nature, not to disease, not to each other, and definitely not to you. Throughout the Council's fleet, the reality of the situation was sinking in. They had been completely outmaneuvered, outwitted. The primitive humans they had dismissed had just defeated them without breaking a sweat. Worse, they had done it while holding back, while showing mercy, while proving they were better than the Council had ever been. Admiral Jihoon delivered the final message. This is your choice, Council. You can accept what happened here today and leave peacefully. Your crews are safe. Your ships can be repaired. You can go home and explain to your people that humanity isn't a species to be threatened. Or you can try to continue this conflict, and we'll show you exactly how far we're willing to go to protect our freedom. His cold smile returned one last time. Choose wisely. You came here thinking you would force our surrender. Instead, you've learned the most important lesson about humanity. We survived everything Earth could throw at us for millions of years. Ice, fire, predators, disease. We survived because we never gave up. We never stopped fighting. We never surrendered. The transmission ended, but the message echoed through every Council ship. The silence that followed was deafening. The mighty Galactic Council had been defeated by a species they thought was primitive, and they had been defeated so thoroughly that they couldn't even mount a response. The cold smile had delivered its message. Earth would not surrender. Not today. Not ever. 3 hours after the initial strike, the Galactic Council chambers were in complete chaos. Representatives from all 7 species shouted at each other in a dozen different languages. Accusation flew. Blame was thrown around like weapons. Everyone wanted to know how this had happened. How had a primitive species defeated them so completely? In the center of the chaos, a new holographic transmission appeared. The noise died down as every alien turned to look. It was a human. Not Admiral Jihoon this time. This was Representative Dae-hyun, speaking from Earth's government headquarters. Behind him, massive displays showed the current state of the Council's fleet. Every disabled ship, every compromised system, every vulnerability that humanity had exploited. The data was overwhelming, undeniable. Members of the Galactic Council. Dae-hyun began, his voice calm despite the chaos he was interrupting. I understand you're confused. Angry, probably. Maybe even scared. You're wondering how this happened. You're trying to figure out where you made your mistakes. So let me explain it to you. He gestured, and the displays behind him changed. They showed Earth from space. Then they zoomed in to show cities, factories, shipyards, research facilities, places the Council had scanned thousands of times over 3 years. You watched us for 3 years. You thought that was enough time to understand humanity. But you were looking for the wrong things. You saw our wars and concluded we were violent and unstable. You saw our conflicts and thought we were divided. You saw our relatively simple technology and assumed we were primitive. Dae-hyun's expression hardened slightly. Every single one of those conclusions was exactly what we wanted you to believe. The Vrelian ambassador finally found his voice. You deceived us deliberately? Of course we did. Dae-hyun replied without hesitation. What else would we do? The moment we detected your presence in the galaxy, we knew that eventually someone would come. Maybe peacefully, maybe not. We hoped for peace, but we prepared for war. That's what intelligent species do. They prepare for possibilities, not just probabilities. Another display activated. This one showed Captain Minho speaking from the Phantom's edge. While you were watching Earth's surface, we were building in the asteroid belt, hundreds of facilities hidden among billions of rocks. You scanned the belt, of course, but you were looking for large structures, obvious signs of construction. We made sure you wouldn't find any. Minho smiled slightly. We built small facilities. We kept them cold, so they wouldn't show heat signatures. We used the asteroid's own mineral content to shield our construction from your sensors, and we transported everything using ships that moved slowly, following natural orbital paths. Patient, quiet, invisible. Engineer Hana appeared on another screen. The technology we used wasn't entirely our own creation, she admitted. About 60 years ago, a small alien probe crashed in the Pacific Ocean. We recovered it, studied it, reverse-engineered it. That probe used quantum entanglement for faster-than-light communication. It used dark matter manipulation for propulsion. It used energy systems we had never imagined. She gestured at something off-screen. You probably assumed any species that found such technology would immediately display it. Use it openly. Announce their breakthrough to the galaxy. That's what confident species do, right? Species that aren't afraid. Her expression became serious. But we were afraid. We knew we were alone in a galaxy full of civilizations far older and more powerful than us. So, we didn't announce anything. We took that technology and we improved it. We combined it with our own innovations. And we kept it completely secret. The displays shifted again. Now they showed something that made several council members gasp. It was a timeline. A detailed record of every piece of alien technology humanity had ever found. Crashed probes, debris from ancient battles, abandoned satellites. For decades, Earth had been quietly collecting artifacts and learning from them. You call us primitive, said scientist Kyungmi, joining the broadcast. But do you know what primitive really means? It means unable to learn, unable to adapt, unable to take what exists and make it better. By that definition, we're not the primitive ones here. She pulled up more data. Your weapons technology hasn't changed in 5,000 years. Your shield systems use the same frequencies you developed 10,000 years ago. Your military tactics are exactly what you used to conquer your last 100 opponents. You know why? Because those tactics worked. They always worked. So you stopped innovating. Kyungmi leaned forward. That's the real difference between you and us. You're old, comfortable, set in your ways. We're young, desperate, constantly searching for an edge. You spent 3 years watching us. We spent 30 years watching you. We studied every species in the council. We analyzed your history. We figured out how you fight and why you always win. Commander Heijin took over the explanation. You win because you're predictable and overwhelming. You bring massive fleets. You use standard formations. You follow established protocols. Your enemies panic because they can't match your firepower, so they make mistakes. They fight the way you expect them to fight. And they lose. She smiled coldly. We didn't fight the way you expected. We didn't meet your fleets in open battle. We didn't try to match your numbers. Instead, we infiltrated your systems weeks ago. We studied your formations and found the gaps. We analyzed your weapons and developed specific counters. We didn't try to beat you at your own game. We changed the rules entirely. We didn't try to Von. We didn't try to Von. In the council chambers, Representative Daehyun watched the alien faces carefully. He could see the realization dawning. They were beginning to understand. You made assumptions, Daehyun said quietly. You assumed that because we fight among ourselves, we couldn't unite against an external threat. That assumption was wrong. Yes, we have different nations, different cultures, different political systems, but when someone threatens all of humanity, those differences become irrelevant. We've proven that throughout our history. When the threat is big enough, humans stop fighting each other and start fighting together. Lieutenant Yuna appeared beside Admiral Ji-hoon on yet another screen. You also assumed that our violence made us unstable, that we couldn't be trusted with power because we might use it recklessly. But you didn't consider why we fight. We don't fight because we're mindlessly aggressive. We fight because we refuse to be dominated. Every war in human history was about freedom, territory, resources, survival. We fight because the alternative is submission or death. She gestured at the disabled council fleet. And that's exactly what we did here. You demanded submission. We chose to fight instead. The only difference is that we fought smarter than you expected. More humans appeared on the transmission. Scientists, engineers, military officers, diplomats. One by one, they explained different aspects of how humanity had prepared, how they had hidden their true capabilities, how they had analyzed the Council's weaknesses, how they had turned the Council's own confidence against them. The picture that emerged was staggering. For 30 years, while the Council was expanding its empire and crushing resistance across the galaxy, Earth had been quietly transforming itself into something dangerous, something unexpected. We learned from history, said one of the scientists. Not just our history, your history. We studied every species the Council ever conquered. We read about their mistakes. We analyzed why they lost, and we made sure we wouldn't repeat those mistakes. Another officer added, most species you've conquered were either too weak to resist effectively or too proud to recognize they were outmatched. They either gave up immediately or fought conventionally and lost. We did neither. We pretended to be weak while we became strong. We acted chaotic while we planned carefully. We made you think you had already won before the fight even started. Representative Dae-hyun brought the explanation back to the present. Right now, your fleet is disabled. Your battle station is powerless. Your crews are safe, but your military capability in this system is 0. We did this in under 2 minutes. And we did it without killing anyone. Do you understand what that means? The Vrelian ambassador looked at him with something like horror. It means you could have killed us all just as easily. Exactly, Dae-hyun confirmed. We're not showing you mercy because we're weak. We're showing you mercy because we choose to. Because we understand something you seem to have forgotten. Power without restraint is just tyranny. Strength without wisdom is just brutality. You've ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years through force. You've convinced yourselves that might makes right. He paused, letting that sink in. But here's what we learned from our own history. Every empire that rules through fear eventually falls. The Romans, the Mongols, the Nazis, the Soviet Union. They all seemed unstoppable at their peak, and they all collapsed because you can't build anything lasting on fear and subjugation. Ambassador Salmon rejoined the broadcast. We're offering you a choice right now. You can accept that you underestimated us. You can leave our system peacefully. You can report back to the Council that Earth is not a species to be threatened. And maybe, just maybe, you can start thinking about building a different kind of relationship with us. One based on mutual respect instead of domination. She looked directly at the Vrelian ambassador. Or you can see this as a temporary setback. You can go back to the Council and demand more fleets, bigger weapons, another attempt to crush humanity. If you do that, we'll be ready. We've shown you some of our capabilities today, but not all of them. Not even close to all of them. Admiral Ji-hoon appeared one final time. His cold smile was gone now, replaced by something more serious, more dangerous. Make no mistake, Council. We don't want war, but we're very, Very good at it. We've been fighting wars for 10,000 years, just like you've been winning them. The difference is that we've been fighting each other, opponents who think like us, who innovate like us, who refuse to give up like us. He leaned forward. You've been fighting species that aren't like you. That's easy. Try fighting a species that reflects your own strengths back at you. A species that learns from every battle. A species that sees every defeat as a lesson and every victory as a stepping stone. The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. The truth was clear now. Humanity wasn't primitive. They were dangerous. And the most dangerous thing about them was that they had been dangerous all along, hiding behind a mask of chaos and simplicity until the perfect moment to reveal the truth. 6 months had passed since the day the council learned what humanity truly was. 6 months since their ultimatum had been answered with a demonstration of power they never expected. The galaxy had changed in those 6 months. Changed in ways that nobody could have predicted. Ambassador Salmon walked through the halls of the renovated council chambers. The building looked much the same as it had before, but the feeling was different. The atmosphere, the way people moved and spoke and interacted, everything had shifted. She wore the formal robes of Earth's representative now, not the clothes of a supplicant waiting to be judged, not the uniform of a conquered species accepting terms. She wore the robes of an equal member of the council. Some whispered she wore the robes of the most powerful member, though she never said that herself. The council chamber doors opened before her. Inside, representatives from all 7 original species sat in their designated areas. But the arrangement had changed. Earth's seat was no longer at the periphery. It was in the center, where everyone could see it, where every discussion had to acknowledge its presence. Diplomat Jiwan walked beside Soman, carrying documents and data files. The agenda today includes trade negotiations with the Keltraxian systems and the security proposal from the outer colonies. Also, the Vrelians have requested human advisors for their military restructuring program. Soman nodded slowly. The Vrelians. 3 months ago, they wanted to destroy us. Now, they're asking for help. The galaxy has certainly changed. Is that what we wanted? Jiwan asked quietly. All this change? It was a good question. An important question. Soman thought about it as they took their seats. Across the chamber, Admiral Jihoon sat in the military liaison section. Beside him, Lieutenant Yuna reviewed reports from the defense fleets. Jihoon had been promoted after the confrontation. He now commanded the entire Earth Defense Initiative, a position created specifically to coordinate humanity's role as a stabilizing force in the galaxy. The title made some people nervous. A stabilizing force could mean many things, but Jihoon had been very clear about what it meant for humanity. Protection, not domination. Defense, not conquest. The lesson of the cold smile wasn't that humanity would rule through fear. It was that humanity couldn't be ruled by fear at all. Reports from the border systems are coming in, Yuna said quietly. Pirates attacked a civilian convoy near the Keltraxian trade routes. Our patrol ships responded. The pirates scattered immediately. They're learning that Earth's protection isn't just words. Jihoon allowed himself a small smile. Not the cold smile from 6 months ago. Something warmer. More satisfied. Good. That's what we're here for. Not to threaten. To protect. Captain Minho was there too. Though his ship, the Phantom's Edge, was currently stationed in Earth's outer system, he attended these meetings via hologram, which amused some of the alien representatives, humans, and their love of technology. But Minho's presence was important. He represented the secret fleet, the shadow force that had changed everything. Captain Minho called out one of the Vrelian representatives. His name was difficult for humans to pronounce, but Minho had learned it. It meant something like sharp wisdom in their language. Your stealth vessels have been tracking the pirate groups. What have you learned? Minho's hologram shifted to face the Vrelian. The pirates are getting desperate. For thousands of years, They operated freely in the outer systems because the Council's response time was too slow. They could raid and disappear before any help arrived. But our ships are faster. We can be anywhere in the system within hours. It's changing the game. Sharp Wisdom clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Your technology has changed many things. We have studied your propulsion systems, your weapons, your stealth capabilities. Would Earth be willing to share these technologies with the Council? There was a tense moment. 6 months ago, that question would have been seen as a demand. A powerful empire telling a weaker species to hand over its secrets. But now, it was genuinely a question, a request that could be denied. Salmon stood to address the chamber. Earth is willing to share some technologies. Yes, but not all. And not immediately. We need to build trust first. We need to show the galaxy that we're not hoarding power for ourselves. We're using it responsibly. She looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. 6 months ago, the Council came to Earth with an ultimatum. You saw us as a threat, a dangerous, primitive species that needed to be controlled. And to be fair, you weren't entirely wrong. We are dangerous. We proved that. But being dangerous isn't the same as being evil or aggressive. We're dangerous because we refuse to be victims. There's a difference. One of the other species' representatives, a floating being that communicated through light patterns, pulsed a question. The translator converted it to speech. What does Earth want from the galaxy now? Power? Territory? Resources? Recognition? Salmon answered simply. We want to be recognized as equals. We want our sovereignty respected. We want to trade, to exchange knowledge, to participate in galactic affairs as a full member, not as a subject or a threat. Is that so different from what any species wants? The chamber was quiet. Then Sharp Wisdom spoke again. 6 months ago, I would have said that was impossible, that a species as young as humanity couldn't possibly be our equals. But you proved me wrong. You proved all of us wrong. You showed us that age isn't the same as wisdom, that power comes in many forms, and that the Council had become stagnant. He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a note of something like respect. My people have been part of the Council for 8,000 years. We have fought hundreds of wars. We have conquered dozens of species. And in all that time, we never changed our tactics because we never needed to. Every enemy we faced fought the same way. Predictably, conventionally. You were the first to do something different. The first to outsmart us, rather than simply trying to overpower us. Engineer Hana joined the meeting virtually from Earth. She had been asked to explain some of the technical aspects of humanity's innovations. We didn't outsmart you because we're smarter, she said honestly. We outsmarted you because we had no choice. When you're weaker than your opponent, you have to be clever. You have to find advantages wherever you can. That's not genius. That's survival instinct. Over the next hour, the Council discussed various proposals. Trade agreements, defense pacts, technology exchanges, cultural programs. The conversation flowed more easily than it had 6 months ago. There was still tension, still mistrust in some corners. But there was also something new. Possibility. In the military liaison section, Commander Heejin reviewed security data with Admiral Ji-hoon. The outer colonies are requesting human security assistance, she reported. They say they feel safer with our ships patrolling their space. But some of the core worlds are nervous. They worry we're becoming too powerful. Ji-hoon nodded. That's understandable. We need to be careful. The whole point of what we did 6 months ago was to prove we wouldn't be dominated. But if we're not careful, we could become the dominators ourselves. That would be tragic. We'd become exactly what we fought against. One clam and clam. So, how do we avoid that? Transparency, restraint. We share our technology, but carefully. We provide security, but we never impose it. We offer help, but we never force it. We remember that the cold smile was a tool we used in a moment of crisis. It's not who we want to be, permanently. Quote, Scientist Kyungmi had been invited to present her latest research. She stood before the council and explained how humanities universities were now open to students from any species, how Earth's research facilities were collaborating with alien scientists, how knowledge was flowing both ways. The council preserved knowledge for thousands of years, Kyungmi said. But preservation isn't enough. Knowledge needs to grow, to evolve, to be challenged and expanded. That requires fresh perspectives, different ways of thinking. We're hoping that by working together, we can achieve breakthroughs neither humans nor council species could manage alone. As the meeting continued, Salmon watched the interactions carefully. She saw aliens who had once looked at humans with contempt, now listening respectfully to what Earth's representatives said. She saw council members who had voted unanimously to destroy Earth, now asking for humanity's help with their own problems. It was surreal in some ways. 6 months ago, they had been on the brink of war. Now, they were discussing agricultural cooperation programs and joint scientific expeditions. But it wasn't all perfect. There were still problems. Some species within the council harbored resentment. They saw Earth's rise as a humiliation to the old order. There were whispers of resistance, plots to undermine human influence. Salmon knew that this new peace was fragile. It could break if humanity made the wrong move. If they showed weakness or excessive strength. If they forgot the lessons that had brought them here. As the meeting ended, diplomat Jiwon walked with Salmon back toward Earth's embassy. Do you think it will last? Jiwon asked. This peace? This new order? Salmon considered the question carefully. I don't know. Peace is always fragile. It requires constant effort to maintain. But I think we have a chance. A real chance. Because we showed the council something they had forgotten. We showed them that there are alternatives to domination. That you can be strong without being cruel. That you can defend yourself without becoming the aggressor. They reached the embassy, and Salmon looked up at the Earth flag flying above the entrance. Blue and white and green. A small planet in a vast galaxy. But a planet that had refused to surrender. The cold smile served its purpose, Salmon said quietly. It showed the council we were serious. That we couldn't be intimidated. But now comes the harder part. Now we have to prove that we're better than they were. That we can use our power wisely. That we can build something better than an empire based on fear. Jiwon nodded. And if we fail? Then, we'll have learned nothing from our own history. We'll have defeated the council's tyranny, only to replace it with our own. And eventually, some other species will do to us what we did to them. They'll find our weaknesses. They'll outsmart us. They'll show us that no empire lasts forever. She smiled, but it wasn't cold anymore. It was determined, hopeful, even. But I don't think we'll fail. Because we know what failure looks like. We've seen it in our own past. We've studied it in the Council's history. And we've decided to choose something different. Something better. Above them, ships from a dozen different species moved through the space station's docking areas. Human vessels, alongside Vrelian cruisers. Earth fighters flying formation with Keltraxian transports. The beginning of something new. The Council had ordered surrender. Earth had answered with a cold smile. But the real answer, the lasting answer, was being written now. In trade agreements and defense pacts. In shared research and cultural exchanges. In the slow, difficult work of building trust between species that had almost destroyed each other. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't always work. But it was possible. And for humanity, possibility had always been enough. They had built civilizations on less. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters. They had looked at impossible challenges and found ways to overcome them. This was just another challenge, another impossible task, another chance to prove that humans, despite all their flaws and conflicts and violence, could choose to be better. The cold smile had won the battle. Now, wisdom and restraint would have to win the peace. And somewhere, on every human ship and station across the galaxy, people understood that. They knew what was at stake. They knew that the hard part was just beginning, but they also knew they were ready. Because humans had always been at their best when facing impossible odds. When someone said they couldn't do something, when the task seemed too big. Possible, when the task seemed too big, when surrender would have been easier. That's when humans smiled. Not coldly anymore, but with determination, with hope, with the absolute certainty that they would find a way. Because that's what humans did. They survived, they adapted, they built, and they never, ever surrendered.